All right, who here wants to make money? I mean, we are in college, so technically this is like the poorest time of our lives.
Yes.
But I'm going to talk to you today about something that you can use your creativity and intelligence, because this class is absolutely full of it, to make dough. What I'm going to talk to you about is how to write and publish a short story. Now, what I'm going to tell you is how to face that overpowering blank page, how to strengthen your writing, the most important parts of a short story, and how to get your work out there and make some dough. First off is the blank page. This is feared by a lot of students and professional writers. You get out there, you have a blank piece of paper, and you don't know what to say. But you can use several of these things to help you write your story. First off is the writing prompts. You can get these off of the internet, off of a prompt book. I have one right here, if you're curious. And you can even, once you get good at them, make them up and have your own little prompt book to look at and go off of. There are also creative exercises. My favorite is the focused free writing. If you have like a small little idea of what you want to do, but you don't really know where you want to go with it, you can use these free writing things and build your idea. Time free writing, you just sit down with a piece of paper, you don't necessarily have a prompt, and you time yourself for like 5 to 20 minutes, and then you just go and write as much as you can without worrying about grammatical or spelling errors. Free writing is like the same thing, except you're not timed. You just write as long as you want, however you want. Focused free writing is like timed, but you have a prompt that you go over. And word association, from the book that I got this from, Essential Writing Skills for College and Beyond, they used Othello, and they just talked about the character, the story that they're in, and how the character interacted with other characters. The last point I would like to bring to you is listening and getting things from the world around you. This is super important, and you can go out in everyday life and just sit down and write what you see, and you can create little stories from that. So now we have what we want to write, but how do we make that great story? First off, you want to work on your title. This is the first thing your audience sees, and so it has to be something creative. It can be a single word or a phrase or a metaphor or something that you say in the book. But if it's something like, if your story is about apple trees, you don't necessarily want to title your thing Apple Trees. You want to think of something more creative. That's the basics. The lead sentence, you have to hook your audience. I personally believe that the lead sentence is the most important part of your story. It is where the audience decides right then and there if they want to continue reading. So you have to be creative, but you also cannot be confusing. There's a difference between intriguing and confusing to the audience. And I picked this little picture because it's a little hook. You want to hook your audience. Okay. Your middle and content. Obviously, you want to have a good story to tell. Make sure you don't ramble. I am an editor at the Bluestone Review, and I get stories that are just gorgeous and beautiful, and other stories that are well written but don't have anything to say, and it's hard to read them. Also, if you have a great beginning and a great middle, you want to have a great ending. You need to make sure that the reader is satisfied. I'm not saying that you can't end on a cliffhanger, but you have to make sure that you tie up all your loose ends to your story. Lastly, we have setting and characters. The setting is the physical place that they are at and the era that they're in. For example, World War II with iPhones is not something that you want to have unless you're in a fictitious world, in which case you want to tell your reader that you're not in this world, but in a different one. So it's okay, just make sure the reader knows where you're at. The setting will also require some sort of research, most likely. And the characters, the way that the characters interact or don't interact is so important to your story. This is where a lot of the juice comes from and the richness. So you need to have a people and you need to have place. And you also need to have a point of view. I'm not necessarily talking about first, second, or third person. I'm talking about who your character is and how they speak, in what style they speak in. You have it's going to be based on like gender, race, if they're rich or poor, if they're human or non-human. All of that is going to make a difference on how they talk. So make sure if you write several stories that they don't all sound like it's the same person talking. I mean, your writing style is going to show through them, but it has to be a different speaker. A theme. Most likely, if you've done everything that I've talked about at first, you're going to have a theme. Whether it's going to be the underlying message of the story, it can be an act, it can be a moral, or it can be an idea, but it's going to show through, or even if you haven't already expected it to. For example, all love is fleeting, familiarity breeds contempt, and it's easy to hate what we can't love. So, now let's learn how to strengthen our writing. Practice, obviously. You have writing prompts, journal, writing every day, trying out different writing styles. Those are some examples. Just write every day as much as you want and as much as you can. And read, obviously. You have self-help books to help you read. Short stories and novels. The more you read what people publish that you know are good, you can learn what's good and bad. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this because time doesn't permit, but this is super important. Editing your work. I would recommend that you edit the day after you write it, so you have a fresh pair of eyes, and especially get peer review, because there might be something that you say that you thought you understood, but when someone else is reading it, they might not understand, and they can tell you. And I got this picture. I was saying editing is like shading in art. I mean, we can all draw the same picture, but the person who can come back and shade it in and make it more realistic and beautiful, they're going to be more recognized for that. So here are some places that you can get published at. One Story at the Threepenny Review, all those. And you also have plenty of scholarship opportunities. And Bluefield College has places. Once again, the Blue Stern Review, Scary Stories contest in the library, and other events for the college. So now we have, I've told you about the blank page, strengthening writing, the most important parts, and where to get your work out there. So learning how to write great short stories may take some time, and it will take skill, but it is so much of with all your practice, it gives you great reward. And that is all I have to say.